Welcome to another chess lesson. I'm National Master Mike Mestres. We're going to be viewing this position from White's perspective. And in this lesson, I like to call it allowing your opponent to fall in the trap. And you're going to see soon enough what I mean by that. Every beginner is petrified of these kinds of pins. When a bishop is attacking a knight or pinning a knight, and because there's a major piece behind it, like a queen or a king. And also the simple tactics that follow with just knight to d4, creating some strong pressure on f3 and disrupting or breaking the castle position, pawn structure. But I'm going to show you today why, if you understand these positions correctly, you have nothing to fear. The first thing we want to do in this position, playing with white, is we want to put the question to the bishop. What are you going to do? Are you going to retreat? Are you going to move back and keep the tension? Or are you going to capture? So if bishop captures knight, of course queen will take, and after knight d4, then simply we'll go back to d1. So white remains with a pairs of bishops, which is important, and it's good to have them. And we can get rid of this knight by simply moving our knight to e2, or if we don't want to trade knights, simply we can move knight to b1, for example, knight b1 and c3. Just want to show that though may not be the accurate continuation, this knight is not going to be there permanent, because we can always try to trade it, or we can always kick it out with c3 on the opportune moment. But let's see what happens when our opponent actually keeps the tension, plays the move bishop to h5. Now probably thinking knight to d4 is coming next, and we allow this to happen. We're setting up a trap. Let's play a move like pawn to a3. It's a useful move. Now if black wants to try to get rid of our nice light square bishop, then we can simply hide on a2. Also, we can play b4 in the opportune moment and create some expansion on the queen side. So a3 is not just a total waste. We never want to do that. We want to find a move that makes sense. But at the same time, we're inviting our opponent to play knight to d4. And now, after knight to d4, it looks like white is in trouble, because black is simply going to take here, and the castle position will be destroyed. But indeed, we have a very powerful move, which is pawn to g4. And after pawn to g4, black has several continuations. One will be to retreat the bishop to g6, in which case we can take the knight, and after pawn takes, simply follow up with knight e2, which attacks the pawn, and we get ready to play f4. Now I believe the only move black can make in this position is d5, but the student will see that after c5, defending the c5 pawn, white can simply follow up with a strong f4. Now white has to be very careful, because these pawns are very strong, and f5 is coming, trapping the dark square bishop for good. Let's look at another possible continuation in here. After pawn to g4, well, what if black decides to sacrifice the knight? Now if pawn takes knight, bishop takes, and this will be really good for black. They sacrifice the knight for two pawns, but now it has two minor pieces, pinning the knight and to the queen. So this doesn't look like a very good idea for white, of course. But after knight takes g4, we have the intermezzo or intermediate move, knight takes d4. Now again, black has several alternatives in here. One is to capture, which attacks another knight, but then again we can capture and we attack another piece. So let's look at the outcome or the result to this. White takes knight on g4, black takes knight on c3, and we capture bishop on h5. If you take a quick look at the position, you see that white simply has an extra bishop. Pawn takes pawn, bishop takes, an extra bishop. There is no attacks whatsoever, and we're winning because we're ahead of material. Let's take a look at after g4, knight takes g4. What would happen if knight takes d4, and now the knight simply moves back, intending to attack the queen, to gain a tempo there, and still attacking our knight on d4. Well, in that case, we can simply play knight to f3, or we can even play knight to e2. The point is we retreat the piece that is in danger, and we also save our queen. Now if you count again, you'll see that white has an extra piece. It has 2 bishops and 2 knights, and black only has 2 bishops and 1 knight. So very easy to see, and no attack. The king can go h2 and rook g1 and hide, and there's no problems here. So sacrificing the knight on g4 doesn't work, because we already saw the 2 continuations. Taking on f3 first, not to allow white to capture on d4, check, then we capture with the queen, bishop g6, and now in this position we have sort of like a small advantage, because you can see this bishop is not doing much. It's not doing anything. It's completely behind our fortress of pawns. Is completely stuck. Now this is still a game to be had in this position, but we can continue normally. For example, bishop e3, and now if black were to play h5, then g5. Of course we're not going to take. Knight h7, creating some 1, 2, and 3 attackers on this pawn, then we will play h4. And if black tries to break the position open with pawn to f6, then we will capture. And after knight takes f6, then simply queen to g2. And this is a very good position for white, because we're attacking a bishop that has to retreat, and once the bishop retreat, then we can break through with queen takes g7. Notice how important this bishop is, that it stops rook g8. So I encourage the student to sort of view this position and analyze that white has particularly no problems here. He could play d4 and try to break the center open, activating the rooks, and having a fantastic game. Black doesn't have any attacks whatsoever in this position, but it presents a lot of challenges after g4 for your opponent to figure out how to proceed. I guarantee you that a lot of students, a lot of beginners, will try to sacrifice the knight, because in some instances it is possible to do that. In certain positions you can do that, but not here. Not here. So after knight takes g4, you already know that you're going to come out ahead with an extra piece after the super cool intermezzo knight takes d4. I hope you have enjoyed this video, and see you next time.